Welcome to Bleach Revisited. I am Karkur Gold, your host of this series in which we will be reading every single chapter of the Bleach manga, providing critical analysis of the art and narrative, personal response to the chapters, as well as discussion of how they connect to the rest of the series. As usual, we will be reading the newest chapter that we are currently on. This will be chapter 62 of the Bleach manga, but we will also be starting volume 8. So let's get right into that reading. This is Bleach Volume 8, a Shonen Jump manga with story and art by Kubo Tite. The other day I received a letter from a reader who said that they had named their son Ichigo. The realization that my work had influenced someone I didn't even know was both exciting and terrifying. So I've decided to shape up. I hope this human Ichigo can be proud to be named after my Ichigo when he grows up. Kubo Tite. Bleach is author Kubo Tite's second title. Kubo made his debut with Zombie Powder, a 4-volume series for weekly Shonen Jump. To date, Bleach has been translated into numerous languages and has also inspired an animated TV series that began airing in Japan in 2004. Beginning its serialization in 2001, Bleach is a mainstay on the pages of Weekly Shonen Jump. This is Volume 8. It will be rated T for teen, recommended for ages 13 and up because of the fantasy violence. If it rusts, it can never be trusted. If its owner fails to control it, it will cut him. Yes, pride is like a blade. This is the Bleach All Stars and Stories. We have Jinta Hanakari, Ururu Sumugia, Yoriichi, Ichigo Kurosaki, Kisuke Urahara, and Tessai Shukabishi. The plot so far. In a series of strange events, Ichigo Kurosaki encountered Rukia Kuchiki and came to possess her Soul Reaper powers. Now his job is to cleanse fallen souls called Hollows and guide them to the Soul Society. Eventually, Ichigo's powers grow strong, enabling him to defeat the colossal Minos Grande. Now Rukia languishes in a Soul Society jail with a death sentence hanging over her. In order to regain his lost powers and rescue Rukia, Ichigo allows Kisuke Urahara to train him. But Lesson 2, the Shattered Shaft, will either restore Ichigo's powers or destroy his very soul. Where is my cursor? Let us go. This is Bleach, Volume 8, The Blade and Me. Chapter 62, Lesson 2-2, Bad Ending in the Shaft. Ah! The severed chain of fate begins to devour itself. We call that encroachment. Ah! Stupid mouth things, I'll smash them. I'll crush their nasty little heads. Just don't get too close to their teeth. Or they'll eat you instead of the chain. Ugh. Ugh. Ordinarily, it might take months or years for a broken chain to get in this condition. But in the Shattered Shaft, there's a gas that stimulates the encroachment. In the Shattered Shaft, encroachment will be complete in only 72 hours, 3 days. In that time, you'll become a Soul Reaper and crawl out of there. Or you'll become a Hollow and we'll have to dispose of you. You jerks. Are you going to let them kill me? You have 2 choices now. Succeed or die. This is Bleach, Chapter 62, Lesson 2-2, Bad Ending in the Shaft. Oh! Oh! Ah! Ah! Not even close. You'll never get to the Soul Society like that. But, no buts. If you can't activate your powers at will, you won't last 1 minute in the Soul Society. They're your powers, summon them. Remember the first time you used them and retrace your steps. That sounds reasonable, but the first time I was just desperate to... Desperate to do what? Huh? People discover their true inner powers when they want to protect something. Their own lives, status, honor, loved ones, a principle. A fierce desire to protect is key. Now think. What did you want to protect back then? Yes, it was Tatsuki. For me, it was Ichigo's sister? Black hat, long hair. She's Ichigo's sister, so she must look like him, only female. Simplistic symbol of femininity. Oh! What's wrong? It sparkled! Just now. Huh? Really? That's right. The heart and the soul are closely linked. Your heart reveals what is most precious to you. Why are you going to the Soul Society? To protect Ichigo. Very good. Oh, hey guys! How dare you summon us when you're not in trouble, you selfish strumpet! Stop it, Tsubaki. I'm sorry. Now you must learn to control your powers. Good enough. Right now they seem to be controlling you. Now, it's your turn. Why do you want to go to the Soul Society? Oh, let go of me. That was the fifth encroachment. These things tromp away for a few minutes and then sleep for several hours. The pain of encroachment is paralyzing, like having your armpit hairs yanked out. I have to act while they're sleeping. Ah! 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 That guy's crazy. He actually ran up about 10 feet of the wall. Wow. What an idiot. Crap. Hey, you! Hungry? Of course not! I'm a disembodied soul! How could I be hungry? That's good. I'll let you in on something. If you get hungry, it's a bad sign. Means you're about to become a hollow. But if you're thirsty, that's okay. Drink some of my spit. You little. Come on, Aruru, it's fun. Okay. Ah, you nasty little brats. When I get my hands free, it's hitting me. Stop, I'll kick your scrawny butts. Please. It must be getting dark now. You lose all sense of time in this place. Darn. I can't climb it. How long have I been down here? I can't tell. How am I supposed to climb out of here? Hey! I brought you some food. You must be getting hungry by now. Huh? I am not hungry. Look! I still have plenty of my chain of fate left. I'll leave the food here. You lose track of time down this hole. Time? I'll tell you two things. One, you've been in the Shattered Shaft for exactly 70 hours. Kapaku usually start going hollow about now. And two, the next encroachment will be worse than all the others put together. The whole chain! Stop! Hey, stop that! No! Uh, what? What? Whoa! Ah! This food is for him. It's all stuff you need to eat. You need your hands to eat. He might be able to eat the apples. And that is it for chapter 62 of the Bleach manga, as well as the beginning of this volume. As usual, we're going to be getting right into our analysis and personal response for the chapter. So I'll be talking about the art and the narrative, how both kind of help to move the manga along, how they're functioning, their strengths and weaknesses, but also how I feel about the chapter, right? My own response. So this volume opens up with, as we've gotten with all the other volumes, a character, but notably, which is different from the previous volumes, is this character is one that we actually haven't seen before. So we don't know who this man is, who is upside down, wearing sunglasses on the cover of this volume. We'll have to find out. I do like this little bit where somebody's named their son Ichigo, and Kubo has decided that he is going to put it in him to make Ichigo a character that's worth being named after. I think that's cute. I also really like the way that Ichigo is drawn here. Looks kind of like a Jet Set Radio character or something. Anyway, this is Volume 8 of The Blade and Me. We'll find out why it's called that soon enough. As far as this character poem, it's attributed to a character whose face we don't see for the first time, so we just get these boots and the bottom of whatever this might be, or maybe that's something arcing up towards them. It's unclear. But we do get this poem about pride being like a blade, and so we can already start to kind of connect these things with a blade to the volume cover or the title, right? The blade and me, right? So this idea of pride being like a blade, that if your pride rusts, it can't be trusted, and if you fail to control your pride, it will just cut you, right? So this idea of wielding your pride, um, of keeping it kind of in check, but also not letting it just kind of rust. So this is an interesting kind of metaphor going on there. Um, as far as what that means, especially for whatever character this is from, we have yet to find out. Usually, these character poems allow us some insight into the character that we are kind of focused on here, but we don't even know who this character is. So, yeah. Might be the one on the volume cover. It's kind of unclear this far in. Here, I do like that we get confirmation of a lot of these characters' names. I don't think that we had their full names before. So we get Tessai Sukabishi, which is, cool name. But also the same things go for Ururu Sumugia and Jinta Hanakari, both of which are names that I don't think we've gotten otherwise. I like that Yurichi is just Yurichi because Yurichi is a cat. It's good stuff. That said, my cats technically have my last name because on the adoption papers or whatever, they're counted as like members of my family, so they have my name. I don't know if that's how it works in Japan. Not gonna spoil all the contents of this yet for you. Anyway, I like that this chapter is very plainly called "Bad Ending in the Shaft," as if this could be anything else. But yeah, we start to get this encroachment, and I was thinking about this before, right? Where I was like, wait, is the encroachment happening quicker because of the shattered shaft? And I couldn't remember because I was pretty sure it was because of the shaft itself, and sure enough, we find out that is in fact the case here. Um, I do like these terrible, terrible mouths. Kubo, as usual, does a really good job of drawing these kind of unsettling imagery, and whenever he can get away with it, does it. I like that, of course, we kind of descend into this chapter, so we have like this voracious chomping of these chains, and then we pull down and literally descend into the shattered shaft with Ichigo as we have this downward look at the kind of thing, and our eyes are naturally pulled down by both the text box and the descent of the page to this action that's creeping back up to Ichigo's chest. So we're very quickly reminded of his situation, And I don't know, it's a really good opening panel for selling that. I also like that we get so much of this from Ichigo's perspective, so we don't see Kisuke from like behind or from over. We see him from being in the shaft ourselves. So we're positioned alongside Ichigo, and it's made to make us really feel like we're in this situation along with him, right? We're meant to identify with him. We're meant to care about him and really be concerned about his situation. So showing Kisuke from the same POV that Ichigo would have makes sense. Um, of course, Ichigo's immediate idea of let me just smash them against the wall, not a terrible idea, but of course they then devour him, which I like that we get them biting this big chunk out of him as he falls back and blood's coming out. I think that's pretty vicious and pretty strong imagery there too. I like that we get this close up of Kisuke's eye as he details the gruesome fact that the chain will eat him instead. Um, and then, of course, goes on to explain about why the encroachment's going so long and so quickly compared to how normally it takes months or even over a year, as we've come to learn with the previous hollows. So we understand the reason why this is only going to take so long is because the Shattered Shaft itself is designed specifically to make this process take only 72 hours. So this does raise a few kind of questions. Like, one, obviously Kisuke is able to make a shaft that makes spirits become hollows quicker. So very clearly Kisuke has developed this as a means for hollowifying people, right? Or at least like speeding up the hollowification of a person. Now, the thing is, with Ichigo being dead, he has to be put into these life or death situations so that he can awaken his Shinigami powers, right? And so you have to wonder if he could have just been killed normally and not put into a situation like the Shattered Shaft, if he would have still been able to awaken those powers, or if he needs to be put into this sort of life or death, very extreme. You either become a hollow or you escape as a Shinigami sort of situation, or if the two are irrevocably joined. And I think, as we'll come to find out, it seems to be much more of like he had to be put in this position in order to develop these powers. But I think another big part of it, too, is if you remember, there's this idea of Ichigo needs to gain this power very quickly. And so in order to do that, he has to undertake these very dangerous methods. Methods which, of course, Kisuke just happens to know, but we'll get more of that, of course. I like the way that Kisuke does get developed, so, that is something to look forward to. But we're getting the seeds of that, right? Like, why does Kisuke know all of this? How does he know all these dangerous methods towards power? And, has he employed these himself even? But at the very least, we understand that a Soul Reaper can become a Soul Reaper. They attended an academy, right? These spirits that live in Soul Society. They become a Soul Reaper over time. And so clearly there's a way to go about this that takes up time and that is, study, and, you spend a lot of time and graduate through classes and all of that. And you could become a Soul Reaper that way, kind of like you might, get good at, I don't know, racing, right? You could take a lot of lessons for driving a car, or I could put you in a car and be like, you need to learn how to drive right now, or else you're going to get in a wreck, And I think that's kind of what Kisuke is doing, right? I get the sense that's more the case, that he's putting Ichigo into these situations where it's like you either learn the thing or you die, and the threat of death is enough to really propel your own learning in a way. So I think the way that we're supposed to read that is exactly like that. That Kisuke needs to get Ichigo ready within this month, and in order to do that, he has to have these very quick, very dangerous sorts of lessons. Because yeah, he could get there over time, but time is not something that they have. Of course, it gets brought up that yes, he has 3 days, 72 hours in the Shattered Shaft, and that time passes all while he is here. I like this close up of Ichigo's kind of expression as he's on the ground, sort of huddled. I also like that he's all bound, because the idea is like, well, if he becomes a hollow, they definitely want his arms to be bound. That said, you have to consider, because hollows do reform otherwise. So, part of it is him being bound so he can't just climb out, too. So it serves a kind of dual purpose. It's interesting. But I think Tessai being in the cave is no mistake, that he's definitely here to keep Ichigo from causing issues were he to become a hollow. But as we know, hollification does have you rematerialize. So would his arm still be bound? That's not something that we really have made clear. Anyway, yeah, become a Soul Reaper, crawl out of there, or become a hollow, and they'll have to dispose of him. And I love that, again, we get this shot of Urahara way up the shattered shaft, really selling the sense of it, and we get that shot of him looking down upon Ichigo with those eyes of his. And again, this reminds me really heavily of that part from part 2 of JoJo's, because I think they also had 3 days to do that. So, any JoJo fans out there, let me know if this is giving you huge flashbacks to that moment. I don't think it's intentionally meant to be, but it's, this is something that does come up in Shonen a lot, where it's like, you have a limited amount of time to do this very dangerous thing, and, whenever you overcome this physical obstacle, that'll prove that you're worthy. I mean, like, just watch Mulan. She has to climb this pole. Like, I guess, whatever. Anyway, I like this back and forth between Ichigo and Urahara here, where Ichigo's like, "You're just gonna let them kill me?" And he's like, "Well, you only got those 2 choices." It really presents it like it's interesting, the kind of morality that Urahara lives in, where he is complicit in a lot of things. Like, whenever we consider with Rugia, right, where he was like, "Well, you're going to be executed. I can't save you from this." Like, he's aware of the situation, and he's like a part of it, and he's even complicit in it. But at the same point, he does a lot to distance himself from it, right? Like, he could have intervened with Byakuya and Renji. He could have intervened in the situation with with Rukia, but he didn't. And the same goes here too, where Ichigo's like, "What? You're going to just let them kill me?" And he's like, "Oh, well, no. Those are your choices. Your choices are to succeed or die. Yeah, I'll have to kill. Like, they'll have to kill you if you become a hollow, but you're the one that decided to undergo this training, and you knew the stakes of it, right?" So it's, again, like, Urahara does a lot of this kind of like washing his hands clean, or like absolving himself of really like this sort of, I don't know, like not necessarily guilt, but blame, really, for situations that other people are thrust in, especially involving him. So you get this sort of Weasley sense from him, or at least I do. Um, I think he's more of a noble character than maybe you might give credit to, because he is helping Ichigo out, and he is investing in, like, saving Rukia and all of this. And he did help Rukia out, like, he let her have all the things that he afforded for her, as well as, put things on credit, and, let her continue to have the mod soul, even though that was criminal for her to do. So, like, he doesn't put his foot down in a lot of ways, and you can see, like, the humane, or like the right thing to do. But at the same time, he tries to kind of keep himself uninvolved with really falling into these different ways. So he's in a lot of ways, he kind of comes across as a schemer, manipulating things from a comfortable distance. And here we really get that in this back and forth. So I like that a lot. And I like that, of course, we get reminder that Tessai is there, in fact, binding Ichigo, and that Tessai is a very, very powerful wizard to use this extremely, like, binding spell 99 or whatever it is, right? Assuming that they get stronger as you go up. And Rukia has been using like 1 through 10 essentially. We can assume that this must be a very powerful spell. At least if we're to take it as a completely linear system. It might not be. Who knows? But Ichigo doesn't seem to be able to break these bindings, so they seem at least stronger than the ones that Rukia lashed him with at the beginning of the series. I think this is a really cute chapter cover. It doesn't have to do anything to do with Shattered Shaft, but I do like, Orihime. She's on this, like, kind of, it looks like obviously it's meant to look like a plane, but it also is probably like a toy set, or not, like a playground sort of jungle gym thing. But it's cute. It's also following that wintry theme that we've been having. I assume that these are coming out around that time, but I'm not positive. Anyway, I like that we cut back to them essentially trying to call on their powers like this is Dragon Ball Z, like a power up. I like that, Chad is full on my Saiyan mode. I'm not sure what Orihime is doing, and Yurichi is just embarrassed for the both of them. Um, but the idea is, of course, that they need to manifest their powers. And so this scene, I think, works pretty well in establishing how their powers work, because clearly they work from different rules than Ichigo's, right? Ichigo's pursuing these Shinigami powers and has to do all this. But they already have these powers, so they just have to learn to actually be able to call upon them and use them. And so it's really important to think about what they want to protect and, how to call forth these sorts of powers, how to conjure them that way. I like that we're now in this abandoned building rather than the big glade that they were with Uryu. But curious the places that Yurichi brings them. I will say I do like this art of like a kind of flummoxed Orihime really works for me. I like her hair kind of tapering down her shoulder and these different leaves. Very good hair art here in general. I think overall, Kubo gets better at drawing her hair over time, and this really shows compared to the very beginning of the manga. Anyway, I always love seeing a Chad from far away. Looks goofy. But we know we aren't completely blanking out their faces here. We are losing the nose and mouth there for Orihime. Anyway, as we know, Kubo actually had a real cat to model for all of Yurichi, so Yurichi I think looks good in general here. Also, doing a black cat makes it a little bit easier to convey. Exactly. You can focus on maybe places the light falls, but otherwise can just kind of leave it all black. Easy to draw. Anyway, I like that, Orihime remembers that it's Tatsuki and has this clear memory of the moment. And then I love the page turn gag moment here where Chad is trying to remember, well, it was Ichigo's sister, but what does she look like? And he tries to piece everything together for, kind of like Ichigo, I guess, and then has this terrifying visage where he's like, no, that's definitely not it. Yeah, I like that, of course, she summons her Shunshinrika. She, realizes that, you know, she's going to, like, she's got to kind of manifest that the heart and the soul are closely linked, right? Your heart reveals what's most precious to you. You're going to Soul Society, you're going to protect something precious. I also like that, like, kind of this bit that Yurichi gives that people will discover their true and inner powers whenever they want to protect something. So, that thing that they want to protect depends in a couple different ways. And I like that we get this philosophy of, the kinds of fights people get into and why people would, wield power or do battle with another person, right? And so, we get different kind of takes on that from different characters. And I like that Yurichi's take is, it is this kind of noble take of like, well, you discover your true power, like the actual power that you have to wield and what that might be whenever you're pushed to protect something important to you. And that something could be, anything. It could be status or honor, your life or a loved one's life, principle you care about. All that matters is that you have this desire to protect something. You don't want to lose something. Whatever it is that you most fiercely want to protect, whenever you are doing that, that's whenever you realize your true power, right? And that's pretty cool because it aligns a lot with what we know from Ichigo, right? Where Ichigo is very much this protector. He cares about protecting people. He really wants this whole forward thrust of this arc is that he wants to protect Rukia. He wants to save Rukia because in a lot of ways, he wasn't able to protect his mother, right? And he wasn't able to become strong enough to defeat Grand Fisher and therefore protect everybody that might be preyed upon by Grand Fisher. And then whenever he's not able to protect Rukia, finally he realizes, like, Rukia is essentially going to be that guiding light that allows him to strive to higher power to be able to protect her, and ergo everyone else that he maybe couldn't protect otherwise. So he's very much driven by this principle of protecting the people that he cares about and protecting those that are his family as well as those that he has this close personal connection to. And so I like that that gets, brought up here. And it certainly was the case for both of them, that they both had somebody to protect in those scenes whenever they manifested their powers. I like that, we get this kind of reflection of like, well, why do you want to go to Soul Society? And Orihime really wants to protect Ichigo because she knows that Ichigo essentially is going to be coming, in contact with like very, very powerful enemies, and she wants to be able to keep him from seeing harm come to him. In the same way that she was able to protect Tatsuki, she wants to kind of be able to protect Ichigo that way too, which I think is really noble of her. Interesting here that we get this shot of Chad, because the scene really leaves us wondering, what does Chad want to protect? What's his reason for going to Soul Society? I like that, we do get the Shunshin Rika kind of all pop out whenever she realizes that desire to protect Ichigo. Of course, homeboy over here looking like a weirdo. But I don't remember all their names. I remember like Bygone and Lily and Tsubaki, and that's about it. It's hard for me to remember all 6 of their names. Of course, Tsuaki does get mentioned out here. I do like their various little personalities. Of course, the idea is that she needs to learn this control instead of them just being upset that she's calling upon them without actually having someone to protect. We get this question posed to Chad, and we don't get an answer for it, which does leave us left to kind of see how that develops, right? How Orihime might develop her powers, what Chad might want to protect, how he develops his powers, and of course, Uryu, who we still have left in the previous chapter. I like that we cut back to the Shattered Shaft and to show like exactly our point of view. We do have Ichigo on the floor, like kind of looking up, and this is his perspective. I think it's pretty good. I also like that we get this sense of it finally dying down, and that he has this. It's been several hours, and he's been paying attention to these encroachments, and they stop. But whenever it's happening, it's paralyzing. Like having your armpit hairs yanked out. But I love that Ichigo like gets up and immediately makes this run for it, right? Obviously, he doesn't quite make it. Has this sort of face, and then falls back down as Jinta and Ururu prey on him. I like that. Of course, they're just sitting there insulting him and spitting on him, literally. I do think that this exchange is fantastic here, where Ichigo kind of falls back down. His stomach is still bleeding from that bite earlier, which I think is pretty good. But he kind of calls back. I like that we get this call from up here on the top of the tunnel, and we shoot back between Ichigo and him. I also like to have an Ichigo in this kind of corner here, so it's like we get him here and here, but Jinta kind of breaking that up there. And I like that, he's like, well, how could I be hungry? I'm a soul. And then Jinta gives this, yeah, if you become hungry, it's because you're hollow, right? You're giving into this hunger. And I like that we have Jinta kind of sitting here at the top panel as, Ichigo is down further in the page. I wish that the bottom of the page didn't end on them spinning down. I wish that was at the top of the page too, because this idea of the page space being kind of like the tunnel, where they're at the top of it and Ichigo's at the bottom, I think was something that you could find visually done throughout the manga. It happens a good bit here, but not as consistently as I wish it did. Of course, they then spit on him, which is absolutely disgusting. Of course, because the sky in here is painted on, I guess, or illusory. I assume maybe just painted on. It's easy to lose track of time, and we come back and Ichigo can't really tell what time it is. I like him like looking up the way that he does, and the joke that Jinta got him a lot of food that he can't eat unless he uses his hands, I think is kind of hilarious. I didn't realize that until the extra bit pointed that out. But yeah. Anyway, I do like, speaking of just good expressions, I like how defiant Ichigo is, and then Jinta having this moment of kind of, pity on him, right? That Ichigo hasn't really has lost track of time and hasn't really realized the fact that he's maybe only got 2 hours left, if that, and that the next encroachment is going to be the worst. And so, of course, we get that on page turn as, of course, I like that we have, it's kind of white background. It's getting darker here as he starts to reveal like the severity of Ichigo's situation. Then we flip, we get a fully black background, and Jinta looking pretty serious, and maybe even ready to kill Ichigo as a hollow here as this last encroachment happens, and all the chains quickly eat away at themselves. It seems like a bit of a mean trick to not let Ichigo know that ahead of time. But here, of course, that does happen, and his entire hold does get revealed, and he starts to holofy, right? So the mask starts to form on Ichigo. I will say Ichigo does have a pretty cool mask design here. We don't get to see it in full, but it is neat from what we're starting to see. I like these kind of very narrow slit kind of eyes. Yeah, it's good stuff, but it's also terrifying because we've seen this entire process before. And I think that's what makes this really work really well, is the fact that we have seen a character go from being a spirit to a hollow. So we already know what the process looks like thanks to everything with the demi hollow. Um, so, I think that this would still be fantastic stuff had we not seen it, but the fact that we know exactly what the process is, and now that we're seeing Ichigo undergo that, it's pretty terrifying. Because we have this very clear sense of everything that happens. And that's it for this chapter. Of course, the idea of all the stuff that you need your hands to eat it's messed up. Jinch is a little bit of a jerk. That's just it as far as it goes for this chapter. Ultimately, I think that the art does get used a lot towards actually showing a lot here, and has some really really strong moments, some really iconic kind of moments too. Especially Ichigo kind of caught like the mask forming on Ichigo and Ichigo starting to holofy. It's the sort of thing that I think a lesser author would maybe not lean into, but the fact that like you know you put your character in this dire situation, it's easy to kind of be like, oh, well, they'll get out of this. They'll find some way out. And instead, it's like, no, he does not. He, like, legitimately starts to holofy. Like, this is, like, the worst case scenario. And I always love whenever a manga does that. Whenever, you start to assume that maybe the character has, like, some sort of plot armor. That it's like, oh, that's the main character. We're only this many chapters in. Surely they get through this. And then things just get worse. And I love whenever things just get worse. And it doesn't have to be character death or anything like that. It just, the idea of kind of playing with your expectations as a reader, and that like you don't expect the main character to catch these sort of losses, are you expect the character to kind of work their way through certain situations because that's just the sort of way that these narratives typically go. And for that to be defied and the character to be put into an even worse situation then has you really guessing like, whoa, what is he supposed to do now, right? I think some of my favorite moments of that, are within Bleach, but also, I try to think of other manga. Like, I think Chainsaw Man has a couple, if I'm thinking of more recent manga, but I think all-time favorite, Kaiji does that a lot. If you're looking for a manga where, like, you're not going to really be able to guess what happens next, go read Kaiji. It's fantastic. And it's not a shonen, though. It is a gambling manga, and it is pretty good, although the art is much different from this. Anyway, I do like the idea of that unexpected. And it's not just doing something unexpected just because it's unexpected. It's really leveraging it to build more tension, right? And it serves a purpose. Because, whenever people talk about subverting expectations, like a subversion only works if it's doing something effectively. If you're just subverting something to subvert it, then, like, all you're doing is just not doing what people would normally expect, and that's it. Like, that doesn't do anything. That doesn't accomplish anything new. Maybe it might be a little novel on its own, but subversion is totally normal. I mean, that it happens all the time. things don't always go the way that you expect, right? Certain structures exist, and those always get defied. But whenever that gets defied effectively, that's what's exciting or important. And so I think here, that's so much of this is built up to where we think that Ichigo might be able to escape or defy this in an interesting way, similar to what we saw in the previous lesson, where whenever it became lesson 1-2, Ichigo had a kind of defiant kind of end. And especially with this starting with bad ending in the shaft, it's like, we're not really getting a bad ending in the shaft, are we? And no, that's exactly what we get. So I love Kubo going through with that. I love that being kind of explored. It really puts you in the seat of like what's going to happen next. But ultimately, I think art wise, this chapter's firing on all cylinders, and narratively, it does some really good things too. I think that we get those bits of dialogue from Yurichi as well as from these other characters in this back and forth. We really get a fuller idea of Kisuke as a character as well. Like I said, from just a few lines of dialogue, so it's a lot of really evocative stuff and really effective. But I'm curious what you thought about the chapter. If there's something that I brought up that you'd like to talk about, please let me know in the comments. But otherwise, if you notice something I didn't, either in the art of the narrative, something that's really operating here, that's not spoiler related, let me know. I am interested. Obviously, Ichigo kind of coughing up the mask before rematerializing, I think, is important because if you remember correctly, I believe in the chapter with the Demi Hollow, with all of that, he rematerialized first. Then he was on top of the building and formed the mask and the rest of his hollow body. But I could be wrong, or maybe the rest of the hollow body. I think the whole hollow body formed, and then he spit out the mask on top of that. Right? I'm pretty sure that's how it went. So this is clearly undergoing a kind of the holification process is maybe going out of order. And I wonder if Ichigo can't rematerialize because of the binding spell or what. It's not made clear. So at the very least, his holification isn't going the normal because we haven't seen him dematerialize. So there's that hope to hang on to at least, maybe. Huh? Anyway, it's interesting stuff nevertheless. So, like I said, let me know if you noticed anything that I didn't, or if you want to talk more about something that I did. But we're going to be getting into spoilers now, talking about how this connects to the rest of Bleach. So let's get into it. As we know, of course, this is where Ichigo does holofy. I wish we would have seen encroachment somewhere else in the manga. Again, we really don't, which is unfortunate. Had to take a sip of water there. Get a little parched. Been talking a lot. Excuse me if I do cough here and there. My throat is quite scratched. Um, but yeah, the idea of course, Urahara knows about this. He's been really focusing on holification and really studying it. It's interesting that we get all of that here. That like, of course, Urahara like has developed the Shattered Shaft and has all this in mind. It's neat that like here it's just presented as is. Like maybe we understand Urahara to be just like a weird fellow, so we expect these kind of weird things. He's this tutor, he's bringing Ichigo through this. But whenever you start to really seriously consider it in the large narrative of Bleach, especially how Shinigami relate to Hollows, you're like, wait, it's kind of fucked up that Urahara knows all that. And I like that Turn Back the Pendulum really delivers on that. That like Urahara created the Hogekyo. He was definitely involved in all these holification experiments and like pushing the boundary for these souls. And maybe trying to find an ethical sort of way to do this, and this might be one of the less ethical ways. But certainly, I think the other reason why Urahara has Ichigo also bound there with number 99 binding, which as we know that it has two parts. So I think the idea is that part one's been evoked and part two can be evoked. Obviously, I believe it does get later evoked, but obviously, Urahara does know about White. Assumably, White is a Vaster Lord, so Urahara knows that this hollow power is within Ichigo. He knows Ichigo's got this powerful hollow, like Kriatsu, dormant inside of him. So, it's the sort of thing where you've got to figure that Urahara knows exactly what he's doing here with Ichigo. Like I said before, I'm almost positive the whole point of this is to see Ichigo holofy. Um, Of course, yeah, there's the gas that simulates encroachment. That really reminds me of Mayuri, right? Using like a gas to sort of endanger the soul in a certain way. It's a shame that we don't get to see any more of that, but Kisuke very much is, as much as he is the mad scientist type, he's not the type to like really use inventions like that in the same way that Mayuri is. Unfortunately for us, because I think Kisuke going full Mayuri route would be kind of wild. Um. Anyway, kind of going forward. Oh, I should probably go back whenever I'm talking about spoilers. Hey, it's our friend Yuha Bach. Uh, no, it's Zangetsu. It's not Yahweh. I had to really land on how I want to pronounce that. I think the Viz translation does go with Yuha, like Yuha Bach. And obviously, it's meant to be Yahweh or Yuha or whatever, but whatever. It's Yuha Bach, I guess. I can't just be saying Yahweh throughout here. Anyway, YHWH, all that. If you don't know, for those of you that I'm talking about this for, Yoha Bach's name is essentially it is the idea is that he is God, right? Not just the Quincy God, but it's like capital G God or whatever. And so he uses the old name for God, the Yahweh or YHWH. The problem is that literating that in like kanji or whatever, I don't know how exactly that comes across, and there's a lot of different ways that that's been fan translated. I believe the Viz manga goes with Yuha Bach, and I'm pretty sure that's also how the unit is named in uh, Bleach Brave Souls, at least off the top of my head. Anyway, obviously, Old Man Zangetsu is the way that we will be referring to him going forward for the non-spoiled folks, and so probably what I'll be shortening this to as well, because this entity is definitely Old Man Zangetsu, right? As much as we know that it is, yes, like a younger version of Yuha that is inside of Ichigo, that is like a remnant of Yuha that he has been basically that's maybe extant in all Quincy. Like it's weird because it's like as much as he refers to Ichigo as his son and all of that and his descendants, um, because I guess the Kurosaki line was until she got with Ishin, like one of the pure Quincy, I suppose. Right? I'm not. Anyway, I need to go read, all of like what not turn back the pendulum, but geez, It's not it's not Memories in the Rain, it's the other one, Everything But the Rain. You need to go reread Everything But the Rain so I can really catch up on all of that. It's been a while, folks. Anyway, I think it's cool that we do get him upside down here because of course the idea is the upside down world within Ichigo's mental world, right? Um the other kind of thing here, him being inverted like this, him being upside down, I think speaks towards his character a lot, and the fact that he isn't what he seems. That what we're getting from him isn't exactly truthful. I like that we also we while we do have all of the black, I love that that ends up getting used the same sort of cloak, and that sweeping out of it is what we get used later for Yuha Box. So it's cool to see the visual kind of parallels there. And obviously, this is the character poem for Old Man Zengetsu, this idea of pride, right? And, it rusting and not being trusted, but you have to control it or it'll cut you. And thinking about especially Yuha as a prideful character, maybe Old Man Zengetsu, but the idea of wielding this blade, regardless, kind of interesting is that the character that talks most about pride that I can think of in the entire Bleach manga is, of course, Ishida, and it's in reference to Quincy pride, right? The pride of the Quincy. And so, kind of curious that, of course, Old Man Zangetsu's poem is, of course, about pride, right? And it's about one's pride being like a blade. And so I think it's cool that we already have so much of a strong kind of, it's not 100% direct, but there's a Quincy connection there. Because otherwise, I don't think the pride gets really brought forth that much. But we'll see here in this volume if that ends up being the case otherwise, because I could just be misremembering. Anyway, yeah, other kind of connections. Obviously, Kisuke. I like that Kisuke doesn't stand around to like watch the holification happen. Probably because he has pretty terrible memories of it. To be honest, we only see Tessai in this one panel here as well, but Tessai was there for the holification of all of the Visored, so it's messed up that he has to be in the hole while this happens. But maybe he left the hole at some point. I assume that he's still down there with Ichigo, though. Of course, the really sad thing here, we talk about like finding your inner powers and them being awakened from this desire to protect something. I do feel like this is something that is held true for Yoriichi, right? That like this is speaking from like a place of truth and not just for Chad or Hime, but this is like maybe an actual truth in Bleach, right? That for Bleach, these powers come from this desire for protection, at least for people, maybe not for Hollows. But then you have to wonder, like where like what is it obviously that other characters want to protect, and it's cool to kind of apply this to different Soul Reaper characters, and especially thinking of like Urahara or Yoriichi. I think certainly Urahara wanting to kind of protect the status quo and like protect reality as it is, and cultivating Ichigo to confront Aizen in order to do that, I think follows. And then Yoriichi wanting to protect Urahara, I think makes a lot of sense too. That like they have such a close bond, and she is really like as much as gets implied about Yoriichi and Urahara being shacking up and all of that stuff, I could read them as best friends in the same way that Ichigo and Rukia are really close friends. Like obviously Ichigo's willing to like invade Soul Society to protect Rukia, and to the same extent I think Yoriichi is maybe willing to do all that for Urahara. I wish we would get more of their past, honestly. I would love like an Omake chapter that's just exploring the past of these characters. But I mean, that's what Bleach does. It builds these kind of evocative characters that we can really imagine these scenarios for. Um. Anyway, terrifying Ichigo Karen character. Uh. Yeah, I'm trying to think of some of the other kind of connections here that I wanted to speak towards. Really, I mean, like the biggest thing we've kind of already talked about, as far as like everything with the encroachment, Ichigo becoming hollow, manifesting white. I like that, of course. Like I said, Urahara turns his back on all that because he doesn't want to be looking over maybe whenever this actually happens to Ichigo. I wish that we got to see a little bit of Tessai here because we get so much of this focus on just Jinta and Ichigo's back and forth before this happens with Ichigo. I'm pretty sure Tessai will show up next chapter though and reveal that he is here. Of course, the mask very much resembling White, right? And White's mask. No surprise, that's intentional. Of course, we'd come to find that the mask gets like the extra stripes on it every time that he uses it, which is kind of an interesting design flair. It's curious, definitely, but I wonder what like is signified there because it's as he calls for this mask, it's not something that happens with the other Visored, and so I wonder if it's Ichigo's heart having changed these different times, and like because again the physicality of things I think is really significant in Bleach, and so I wonder if each time he uses this mask, there's been some sort of other significant change in Ichigo that would call for the mask looking different each of those times by like those little stripes, right? For those design changes to be happening. And I want to kind of try to track that and follow that through Bleach. But I don't know. Why do you think that Ichigo's mask gets the extra stripes on it? I'm really curious. Is it just a design thing, or do you think it actually links up to something plot significance? As always, with anything spoiler-wise, please make sure that you tag it as a spoiler. Just say, like, my comment contains spoilers, or say spoilers, and then put in, a few spaces, or whatever. I just don't want people that are looking at the comments to get spoiled, because that might happen. And I try to kind of separate it out, because some people might be experiencing this for the first time, or at the very least experiencing just the manga for the first time, and then there's a lot of people that have only watched the anime that might be reading through all of this or watching these videos as they read through. But nevertheless, it is cool that we have all those kind of connections, and that of course we get Ichigo hollowifying out of order here. I think is significant. I think it might have to do with the Shattered Shaft, but the idea that he doesn't dematerialize, that he starts to cough up the mask first because he's gone through this quicker encroachment, I think that's all tied together. Like this forced hollification that he's going through an advanced encroachment in the Shattered Shaft. I think the whole point is that Urahara knows that this is one, going to force Ichigo to awaken to these hollow powers and to become slightly hollow. Like, I think that's 100% intentional. But two, if Ichigo is to actually awaken his Shinigami powers, he has to at least have some amount of hollow stuff anyway, if he's going to form an Asoichi out of his hollow, right? Like, out of white. Because otherwise, like, there's no way for him to get a weapon, period. Right? Like because you have to have a Zanpakuto, and that's given to you because it's formed through an Asuichi, which Oetsu makes. So, like, Ichigo actually has to create his own, and you can't do that without like a hollow. Like, just being a Shinigami won't allow him to do that, as far as I'm aware. Um, Although the Asuichi are made out of amalgamated souls. I don't remember if it's specifically meant to be hollow souls or Shinigami souls, because I've looked around, and I've gone back and read those chapters a bunch, and there's places online that insist that it's Shinigami souls, but I'm almost positive it's got to be hollow souls because of the mechanics of the universe, right? Because hollows manifest their energy physically, right? They have the spiritual energy, and then they literally physically transform themselves to represent that energy. That's what a hollow does. And so if you forge a hollow into a sword, and then you put all of your Rietsu into it, and then you're able to manifest your energy through it, it transforms your sword, because the sword is essentially doing a resurrection like a hollow is, kind of. So, like that follows, and that makes sense for me. So it being an amalgamation of Shinigami souls is I don't know, like, maybe it still works and follows the same rules that hollows follow, but it would make sense if it was more like an amalgamation of hollow souls. I always read Asuichi just by the way that they presented as hollows, right? That was like the big reveal, is that essentially the Zanpakuto that people were using were hollows that were tempered into the form, like their soul was literally melded into the form of a sword, and then they were able to kind of graft their own spiritual power onto that over time. But and so that's how I kind of read this, is that the reason why Ichigo is able to manifest a sword at the beginning is because he has these hollow powers and these Quincy powers that can manifest, right? That and then he can start to apply Shinigami powers to those, which is Shinigami powers, of course, come from white as well. It's a lot. Nevertheless, it is a lot, because white is Zangetsu, but white is also white. It's a lot, right? And that's the other thing, is like not to conflate actual Zangetsu with White the Hollow, with Shirosaki, all those entities. But we'll get into that whenever we get into that. Nevertheless, this is a fantastic chapter. Thank you so much for following along with me. This has been Bleach Revisited. I am Carker Gold, as always, reminding you that spirits are forever with you. Stay gold.